Hello, hello, my friends. It is Hondo, and welcome back to the Knights of the Nerd Republic. You know what to do, and stay profitable.
The Nerd Academy podcast is released weekly at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, available on our website at www.thenerdacademypodcast.com and wherever you listen to podcasts. You can find the Nerd Academy podcast on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. You can also help support the show by going to patreon.com/The Nerd Academy podcast, where every donation allows us to bring you more exciting content every week.
Hello there, and welcome back to Knights of the Nerd Republic, the show where your favorite nerds talk all things about the galaxy far, far away. I am your host, Jarod, the Dark Jedi Bachman Stubbs, and it is a hot Acolyte summer, y'all. I am 4 viewings of these episodes. Well, I've watched it 4 times collectively. I've seen them both twice. Doing quick math in my head. I somehow did the more complicated math first by accident, but I got to see it Monday night. Absolutely loved it. Got to watch it again Tuesday night and was just even more enraptured by these first 2 episodes of The Acolyte. And I am so excited to talk about it. I am not alone, of course. I am joined by the one-eyed knight himself, Connor Chiquiti.
Hello. Yeah, no, it's I didn't get a chance to see it, even though it was playing in my area for the advanced screenings. I just never really didn't really have the motivation for it. But yeah, I got to watch it. What's today?
Thursday.
What is Thursday? Wednesday. Yeah.
Wednesday.
Because I was off and I just didn't have. I got home late from work on the night that it came out. So, but yeah, we're here to talk about it. It was cool. I'm excited.
Hell yeah, we are going to get all into it. And with a first-time guest appearance here on Knights of the Nerd Republic, the legendary author of Be More Obi-Wan, contributor to the Return of the Jedi Visual Archive. I had to get past my Ionized Bastards character sheet to get to it because it's just sitting on my desk and I flipped through it. It is the one, the only Star Wars pun master herself, Kelly Knox.
Hello.
I had to make sure it was a introduction befitting you and your profile, Kelly. It is an honor to have you on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited. I really liked The Acolyte.
Oh, it was phenomenal. It was phenomenal. I'm very excited to talk about it. But before we do that, you know, when you're going around hunting Jedi, serving the mysterious Dark Lord, you're gonna need a drink, and where better else to get that drink than Sunday's Bloody Mary? You guys know the drill. Sunday's Bloody Mary has the most badass Bloody Mary accoutrement in the galaxy with their 3-time award-winning spicy Caesar mix, as well as their mild and traditional mixes if the spice ain't for you. They also have their award-winning pickled daily beans, okra, and asparagus if you want to get your freak on and garnish that bad boy. As this former bartender will always attest, I can make a mean Bloody Mary from scratch, and Sunday's Bloody Mary is the only Bloody Mary mix I will ever use and has surpassed the from scratch Bloody Mary in my opinion. If you want to get your hands on the best Bloody Mary mix money can buy, go ahead and use the link in the description and use code TNAP, T-N-A-P, at checkout to get 10% off your order and help out your favorite nerds while you do it. Kelly, I want to start with you first. Going into The Acolyte, you know, it's a bit of this big sense of mystery and this whole whodunit vibe. What were you, even if this question is kosher, if not, tell me to shut up. What were you like? What were you expecting? Not necessarily from plot, but just from like how we would see the High Republic brought to life. Because like that was something that like for me, I was like, oh yeah, like it takes place in the High Republic. But that like, oh my God, like we're gonna see the High Republic in live action. It like that was something that like didn't really hit me until days before, where I was really like, oh my God, like the High Republic is gonna be in live action. Like I remember back when Rogue One was coming out, we were like, oh, this is a huge deal. Saw Gerrera's in the movie, you know, and that it was this long kind of road to eventually seeing characters like Ahsoka Tano and Bo-Katan in live action. They're like, now it's the High Republic, like something that felt kind of pie in the sky to ever see adapted onto the screen. So like, how where were you in kind of that mix up of like, oh my god, like this era is coming?
I had to keep reminding myself that it's 100 years later, I think, from where we know them in the High Republic. And so that kind of tempered my expectations for, like, I really wanted to see a cameo because I knew Vernestra was in it and I wanted to see all my other favorite Jedi from that era from the books. But I was like, okay, the way the timing's going to work out, that's not going to be an option. So that's cool. That's cool. And so it was nice to see Vernestra, to know she's there. But other than that, it's a blank slate. And I really love that when we get that in Star Wars. So often we know how it ends. And right now we don't. And so it's just that by itself is a huge treat in this universe. So I'm really looking forward to seeing where it goes.
Absolutely. Connor, how are you feeling? I know you were in like the higher echelon of people who kind of ride for the High Republic. So like this is a trip.
So I wish it was, because like basically if this show came out like 2 years ago, yeah, I'd be over the moon. But like baseball's kind of taken over most of my brain at this point. So while I was still excited for the Acolyte and I was still like, okay, yeah, High Republic, I wasn't like, buzzing with excitement where I buzzed with excitement with like Fallen Order per se, because like again, that was like the one project that my hype levels were insane for that. So yeah, I mean it was it's funny because of the fact that like I hyper fixate on one thing out one time. I just did not get into any of the marketing. And it wasn't that it was bad. Like I would see stuff retweeted or stuff on Facebook or stuff out elsewhere.
You weren't seeking it out. I know that's the camp I'm in at this point.
So
is like, especially doing the show and everything, that I used to be a watch everything. Piece of me, about every piece of marketing, every single interview. And and for the show, I've very much been in the camp of like, watch the first couple to talk about it and have some like have some fun rampantly speculating, and then watch not another thing after that. Just go out of my way to consume as little as possible, especially for something that is so steeped in mystery.
And honestly, I was kind of happy I didn't, because I remember, I think it was friend of the show, Alden Diaz. It was either Alden or someone else that they were talking about the like there was like a twist or whatever that was revealed in the marketing, and then there was going to be apparently there was another twist in the second episode or whatever, and I just didn't know what anyone was talking about with it, and I just completely forgot about it by the time. So I think honestly, when it came to Acolyte, this was probably my first quote unquote like real organic first viewing experience where like I didn't have any sort of like preconceived notions based on the marketing and the interviews that they do from the actors about like, oh, what if this thing happens in these episodes? What if this thing happens? What if this character does this? What if, all that stuff. So it was just kind of like sat down, watched the episode, just kind of took it at face value. And yeah, some pretty freaking cool stuff that we're going to get into.
Absolutely. Well, I do kind of want to start. I want to start at the beginning on two fronts. One, I just need to make sure the world knows how deeply funny twin theory mania is, like on June 6th, 2024. Like that is deeply funny that everybody and I think that it was kind of a who knows what all his intention, whatever, but I think it was a phenomenal moment that with how much Leslie Headland has talked about, it's an onion, you're peeling back the layers, all of these things, like whatever you think this is, it's not that, you're going to be wrong. That I think the fandom had a moment where they were kind of thumping their chests, where they were like, well, because of this poster and the way in the trailer and the running and the this, that we were like, ha, got you. We got you. Twins. And the show within 10 friggin' minutes is like, good job. Don't care. You thought that was the twist, honey? Sit down. Like that made me so happy that that they're like, oh, you figured out twins. We were barely hiding twins. We were barely hiding twins. Like it was like there was a like there's no way necessarily it could have been planned for, but it just felt like such a meta like victory lap that they were like, oh, you figured out the first 10 minutes of the show. Good job. Like that, like I don't know, man. I cannot tell you because I you know, and I love predicting, and that's not something we're gonna get into in this episode necessarily. But like I love that so much, especially because I pride myself on my track record. That like in high school, I called all of the Force Awakens, I called all of the Last Jedi, I called all of Loki season one. I call I have been batting really good. And I love engaging with these stories like this of like, oh, what's gonna happen next? And just the way they were like, okay, cool. 10 minutes in, what else you got?
Yeah.
So that in and of itself is funny. But going to kind of like the outset of this show, I think I am like low key kind of obsessed with how much of the show's mission statement and ethos is laid bare in the very opening moments where, you know, there is this immediate, okay, understanding about what is A, at stake, but B, like the ethical, philosophical consequences of the conflict at the heart of this show. That in those first moments, May, you know, the way she challenges Indara and the way Indara responds to it is all like it feels like those times where like you watch a movie for the first time and then you realize that like the entire thesis of the movie is spoken in dialogue in the first few moments. Like I know again he's gonna show up like goddamn Beetlejuice, but like I know Alden loves to talk about like that line in The Sin in The Mandalorian. That whole, you know, my armor, you know, I fear my armor has lost its integrity. I must begin again. That like that's the show. That's the show. That is what the show is about. You know, an enemy helped me who didn't realize he was my enemy. My armor's lost its integrity. That's all. That's the whole show is about, right? And I love so much that from jump, it is the Jedi sitting at this sanctimony, well earned sanctimony, but still sanctimonious place of, you know, we are the peacekeepers. You know, where's this planet's Jedi? That we're still in that era where like individual worlds could have a Jedi or two who just hung out and watched over things, and that was their gig. That it is, where is your Jedi? That immediate confrontation and the verbiage that I am so fascinated by. With the, you know, a Jedi does not strike an unarmed enemy. Yes, you do. And that it is that sanctimony immediately being smacked out of the air and, you know, pushing the Jedi to act in violent ways, whether or not, whether or not it's justified, which it clearly is in the case of Indara here. You know, she's fighting for her life, clearly. But this idea that like this is the beginning of watching the Jedi deteriorate, that this is that the systemic and the systemic rot and the institutional decay, you know, it's been building. We see it all the way back in phase one. We see some of the annoying politicking and, you know, oh, but the image of the Jedi taking precedent of the mission of the Jedi. You know, we see a little bit of that. We see it, you know, creep through the High Republic publishing. But like now that we're here, where we know like this is the end of the High Republic and the beginning of the fall of the Jedi, to use like the Lucasfilm timeline verbiage, that knowing that like yes, it is that this is what we stand for. Is it though? Is it though? And it's I'm in love with that first fight, and I've been talking for I've been rambling. So
No, it's great.
Kelly, I give the floor to you.
I think that first fight's really interesting for a few reasons. One, like I love Indara as a character, but when she says "my child," something all of a sudden felt really wrong with her attitude. Not just because we'd never heard that before, but they were clearly setting up like this air of superiority around the table and downplaying
Yes.
May. And I think the reason why she chose that was to kind of highlight May's youth and maybe make us think that May didn't know what she was doing, but then we find out she does know how to fight and she
Yes.
does take on Indara. So that whole setup was really interesting. And then I think as for what it reflects of the show, like you're saying, sort of like the show's thesis statement, like we all talk, the marketing talks about it, we talk about it. The question of the show is, or the basis of the show is, there's this mystery. But the mystery isn't who killed Indara. We watched it happen. The mystery is why. And I think seeing that kind of grow over the next few episodes, because they keep hinting that something happened on this planet that was so bad that one Jedi took the Barash vow, and another person feels like this, whatever happened, was worth killing over. It's such a fascinating, real mystery that I'm really excited to see where they go with that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, it is immediately compounded with, and I love this. It's one of my favorite things about The Mandalorian is like the however many entendre titles, right? And that it's, you know, I teased this when we did our kind of like live after show on Tuesday. One of, if not my favorite albums of all time, is Kendrick Lamar's Damn. And I talked a lot about this when we were talking about Ahsoka with Shadow Warrior. That I spent a good week and a half talking about Shadow Warrior from this place of, I don't think I get what you're trying to say, but I feel it. Like I feel what you're telling me. I can't put it into words, but I kept viewing it through the framework of Damn, of that, you know, is it wickedness or is it weakness? You decide. And that idea of like, are you going to walk the path of the meek and the selfless and the merciful, or are you going to embrace those darker feelings that allow you to kind of indulge yourself, but will result in oblivion by the end, which is very Star Wars. Damn is a Star Wars story, and I love it for that reason. But the word/word titles, and you know, again, I think that lends itself so much here as well, as the choice between, do you allow, you know, past transgression, past hurt, past trauma define your path forward, or do you let that set the bar of things that you will never allow to happen to anybody else ever again and try to make your way through? And the way that both episodes, if I'm not mistaken, open with May's mission, and that it is the darker word that is always first, that it is lost and found. And we begin with this lost soul, you know, who's under the thrall of the Sith or whatever it may be, you know, whatever's going on with Darth Teeth. That it then immediately jumps to, and this is the person who found their way, who had to accept the Jedi aren't for me, and I'm still going to do my own thing after that, and still be at peace in a really beautiful way, at least so far. And again, you go into the next episode, it is revenge again of her just following this path and continuing the spiral, and justice of Osha being very okay with like, we got to stop her. You know, she gets she gets cold feet, she gets butterflies in her stomach when the time comes to let off a couple stun rounds. And you know, I don't think it's ambiguous that I think she made those shots go wildly off course. but like it's still I find all of that so fascinating. That's so much of this story. I feel like by the time it's over, that we are going to be able to go back and look at like obviously the episode title is what the episode is about, but like that it's like like thematically this is how they both deal with these like diverting ideals and ideas. Um but yeah, Connor and Dara fight.
So the Andara fight, the thing I found really interesting, and this was probably my biggest takeaway through the first two episodes. And from what I can remember in the High Republic books, like there's not much emphasis on unarmed combat for the Jedi. It's mainly the lightsaber and the Force. So I remember, going back into the marketing for Acolyte. I was about to say High Republic, but kind of the same thing at this point.
From a certain point of view.
From a certain point of view, yeah. It was touted as this like martial arts show, and we see that in this fight. But for me, it's less about like that and more just about the fact that there's such an emphasis on unarmed combat for the Jedi here so far that it's so fascinating to me to see like how's it probably going to decline to where they just use the lightsaber. Because it's like if they just use unarmed combat, it's like they know that these Jedi know very well, like, hey, lightsaber, it's a last resort. It's if you really, really need it, use it. And like you have characters like Yord, who's fascinated in his own right, that just immediately goes to it if confrontation's needed. Just and you got Master Saul and Dara, and probably a few other Jedi we'll meet. Maybe Kolnaka's a martial arts fighter, dude. That shit would be awesome.
Yeah.
That use this type of combat, and as we see it in like the prequels and even in some of the games and books and comics, like for the most part, not a lot of the Jedi have much training in unarmed combat. Some are decent, most are not.
And I do think there's something interesting there that again, like it is that more often than not when we're talking about like an institution like the Jedi, like the term traditionalist kind of ends up being a pejorative. But in this context, like I do think there is a beauty in, they're both like, no, we're not going to do this at all. We're going to go out of our way to not have to draw our sword. And I think Yord's quickness too is really interesting because it does betray that, like, even though he does say like, yeah, I've been a Jedi Knight for about 2 years, and with how much of like a stickler he is, that there is kind of a insecurity there, for lack of a better word.
Mhm.
That like there is very much a like I am a Jedi Knight of the Republic, and I must do the thing, and I'm I have my nice dry cleaned and ironed mission robes, the ones designed to get thrown through mud and fire. Look how nice and pleated mine is, and how proper I am, and how quick I am to be like, ha ha ha, you have failed, as I am a knight of the Jedi Order. Look at my gold lightsaber. That I do find that fascinating, and I do think it's interesting that retroactively, I've already seen some discourse online talking about like, oh, the Jedi are supposed to go for their weapons. Like, doesn't that kind of retroactively make all the Jedi we see constantly reaching for their hip, like kind of bad at their job? And it's like, well, I mean, if you look at the context, like by the time somebody already has a blaster on you, that is your only recourse,
Mhm.
And then I think it is an interesting framing of like, how many times throughout Star Wars do we think there are certain characters who wouldn't have gone for that? Like, and having the Living Force, like kind of recently on the brain, reading it last month, I love how often like lightsabers didn't come off belts. The only time people really start duking it out in that book is by the end when they're fighting, all the pirates. And at the very beginning, you have the three Stooges guys throughout that book who are trying to hijack the Starliner Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon are on. They just bullshit their way through that. They just
Yeah, they do.
I'll use the force and blow your arm off. You know, like it's like they just freak him out. Like so, we do see that, and we see it again in somebody who is kind of an iconoclast in his time in Qui-Gon Jinn, who because he does seem like a High Republic Jedi, he seems like a man out of time in 2024 because we've seen all of this other stuff the Jedi do that he would have so much more in common with. And you know, I think that again in a show that is kind of out here to challenge the Jedi, not just in terms of combat, not in just in terms of like an adversary they have to face, but philosophically, like you said, Kelly, with how kind of demeaning Indara is in some ways, where you know she, you know, obviously she makes the table stop laughing at her at May, but you know there was kind of a like hush hush child, you know, that to
Yeah.
it, but it is also putting their philosophy on blast of okay, you're dead now because you took that moment to save this random guy. That I also find fascinating that it is simultaneously, and it's a very dark side Sithy thing to do, to go look at the sanctimony of the Jedi. Also, I could only have killed her if I tried to kill an innocent man. The only way I could have stopped this Jedi is if I tried to kill a bystander and distract her and, you know, put one of these little shurikens right through her heart. It's a gut punch. And, you know, by the time that we flash forward to Coruscant and we see Soul, hashtag Soul Patrol all day, baby.
I love Master Soul.
Me
He's
too.
I'm like I'm watching it and I'm like, damn, do I really already have to do my fit top 10 Jedi again? Like, did you really show up and throw this whole list off kilter? But no, he did, and so much of it is because there is that tenderness to him that we're seeing in many ways a Qui-Gon Jinn of his own era.
Mhm.
You know, that well, like we said earlier, like that politicking that permeates the prequel trilogy. Like we see Vernestra kind of involved in that, and I kind of want to use that as a jumping off point. Kelly, how are you feeling about Vernestra Rowe at this point? Because I was having all kinds of feelings.
Yeah, I mean, I just finished Defy the Storm. I'm in the middle of Temptation of the Force, and it's hard to, I don't want to say reconcile. It's kind of hard to see her as the same person, but you know, if I'm alive for 150 years, I sure hope I'm not the same person that
Yeah,
that I was. But so sometimes it's hard for me to think of her as the same Vernestra that I know because she's so stuffy. But I mean, you can tell that this is a Jedi who has seen some shit and she has been through it. And now she's kind of in the like, I don't think she's on the council, but she's definitely in that sort of like elder statesman-y kind of mindset. And I'm
I
You
curious.
are
love
a
elder
master, but we don't
statesman.
grant you the rank.
Yeah.
I love elder statesman. That is such a great way of phrasing it. Because I am also like I kind of I'm getting the vibe that like if you're not on the council, you're like an emissary. Like you're like a backup
Yeah.
council member in a way. Like you're kind of like the envoy between like the non-council members and the council themselves. Because like you said, like she's clearly been through so much, and we've seen the lot of it, you know, throughout the conflict with the Nile. That it is crazy to see this who we meet as this bubbly protege who's just so excited to get to like continue the teachings of the order to seemingly losing her apprentice and you know all of the heartache that she's endured that like yeah I can see how we got here, you know, and that but there's also a part of me that's so disappointed to see that as someone who loves Vernestra in the books, who's excited to see how Vernestra is developing here. This isn't like oh they got her wrong thing. It's part of the development. That I'm like, oh, Vernestra Rowe was part of the problem. That I'm like, why are we talking about your political enemies? There's a dead Jedi Master. Like, like the body's not cold on Ueda, and your political enemies? What?
Yeah.
like this is I like Coyote. I'm one of the few people on the internet I've figured out who love Coyote Mundi. Do not just don't hate, who love Coyote Mundi. But this is Coyote Mundi shit. You're better than this, Vern. Come on, man.
Yeah.
Like I'm there part of me. Like not disappointed like as a fan, but like as like someone who's invested in the character. I was surprised by that. You know, like I know there have been some people who were like who were saying Vernestra was out of pocket, or the council or whoever's out of line for like, oh, we got to bring everybody back to Coruscant. We got to figure this out. Like, no, the situation's gotten wildly out of hand and people need to regroup. I agree with her on that. But that framing of like, no, it's the political enemies and we have to be strong. We need to make an example. Oh, that broke my heart. That broke my heart a little bit. You know, it's like, God, it's like when you see like a musician or an artist you really like talk about AI in a good way. It's like, God, why are you on this side of the battle? How the hell did that happen?
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, the two examples that really kind of hit home for me in terms of that was like, I mean, yeah, the whole thing in the second episode where Vern was like, we got to regroup. You got to come back. And Master Soul's like, no, you know, we gotta find Osha's sister. Like, we gotta do this mission. It's pretty darn imperative. And Vern, I think, you know, is Vernestra. I feel like she understands it, but like there's a sort of like responsibility that she has now that probably is weighing her down. And then the other thing that really just hit it home for me, just how sort of intermingled the Jedi Order and the the Republic are, was Yord. I've almost said some other random name. Yord going stop in the name of the Republic and the Jedi Order. And I'm like, yep, there it
good
is.
catch.
There it is.
That was one I was like, hey, you know, like I don't know.
It doesn't sound right.
It doesn't sound right. Like, and it's weird that I didn't have the same reaction to Jecki doing it in the name of the Senate of the Galactic Republic. You are under arrest. Like this, obviously the same thing that Mace says to the Emperor. But like,
yeah.
I don't know why that didn't bother me as much, because
Yeah.
they see, because like that phrasing seems a little bit more like we are the Jedi Order and we are the secret police of the Galactic Republic. Like,
Yeah,
that
we're not our
feels
own
more like it.
institution anymore.
But
Yeah.
that phrasing from Yord, I don't know why it made me. I don't know why that prickled against my ears the way it did, but it did. And I'm glad you pointed that out, Connor.
I was just because like it happened, and I'm like, don't like that. You know, they got to be separate institutions, man. That's how it was in Phase 1. At least from what I can remember, that's how it was in Phase 1.
For the most part, yeah, they were working in concert. Less than one was getting marching orders from the other.
Yeah.
You know?
So that line, Jared, when you were saying, like, it kind of passed over my head too, but I was like, why does it sound so familiar? And I was like, oh, Mace Windu said it, and I just kind of stopped at that. But now that you say it, I'm like, yeah, no, that's probably even worse.
Yeah, but
like, you're
but
not
it's weird
the Galactic
that one
Republic.
is worse to us. Yeah,
you're a Jedi. What are you doing?
But again, I do think that it is interesting that, again, and you know, we're going to dive into it here. You know, that's kind of what the live stream was for this week. But for some of the more speculative stuff, you know, it's putting that on the back burner. But just from what we see in front of us right now, is that Yord is so hell-bent on letter to the T, doing what, every single order down to the last syllable, down to the freshly ironed mission robes, whatever, that he keeps getting undermined by a Jedi who outranks him, who is a lot more loosey-goosey about this whole thing, and clearly it is clearly taking accountability, in his own words, for a failing he made to try to clean up this situation. And whatever we find out happened on Brandok, with the sisters, with the coven, because that's we all knew Anasea. Okay, that's Osha's last name, so we know that's way more connected than I think we initially thought. But I think that's going to be an interesting facet for Yord, is watching somebody who represents, again, that institutional power be it probably have some pretty gnarly skeletons in his closet. Same with Vernestra, that she is just so we got to do it like this and like this and like this and like this. That it's like, yeah, like you're taking orders from all of these folks, but like you got to recognize at some point along the way this institution is not flawless, and pretending it is part of the problem on a fundamental level. But kind of like making our way through the first episode, just a little like fun Easter egg thing or whatever. I just got to say, shout out to Nar Shaddaa. I love Nar Shaddaa. Coruscant's. I love Coruscant. I love Coruscant, but like when my ears perked up and I like went ooh whenever they were like Wild Night on Nar Shaddaa. My girlfriend, who very into Star Wars but way more normal about it than me, was like, "Ooh, what's that?" And I was like, "How do I explain that Nar Shaddaa is Coruscant but worse in a way that doesn't make me sound weird for getting excited for hearing about it?" And the explanation I landed on was Coruscant. Coruscant has a shithole element to it. Nar Shaddaa is like Star Wars Gotham. And she was like, "Oh, why is it your favorite?" I'm like, because everybody's so much worse on Nar Shaddaa. Everybody, there's no redeeming quality to Nar Shaddaa. It's just worse core. It's just 1313 the planet. That's why I love Nar Shaddaa. You get away with anything on Nar Shaddaa. I love Nar Shaddaa the way, because people talk about it the way that people from New York talk about New Jersey. That's why I love Nar Shaddaa. It means so much to me, this little shithole moon. But and yes, to make the joke that everybody's making, that I wanted to make Monday night, but didn't want to lead into any spoilers. Leslie Headland, you deserve an award for having one of your main characters do a wildly dangerous manual labor job and proceed to name her Osha.
Yeah.
That might be one of the funniest things in all of Star Wars. Like, and normally it's the bad guys who get the on the nose names. Normally it's the main villain's name being Sidious and his lackeys being named Maul and Tyrannus
And Grievous.
Yeah. No, it's like, hey, aren't droids supposed to be doing this job? Call Osha. No, that's it's deeply funny.
Yeah,
but
Osha, High Republic, THR, like, come on.
My favorite era in Star Wars is the High Republic.
Yeah.
I ruined the joke. I want to say the Hollywood Reporter, and then I actually said the real one.
HR, like, come on. OSHA.
It's all right. It's all right there.
Like,
OSHA in the HR.
Dude, the Acolyte's going to be about workplace safety somehow.
Yeah.
There was some tweet where like someone said something about like, oh yeah, the Acolyte, the era of workplace safety or something, and it cracked me the hell up.
It's deeply funny. But I do find kind of like going back to like the investigation and like OSHA getting pinned for all of this. I do love, again, just how good they are at like showing the delineation between, the lost soul and the one that found their way. That, OSHA's like, granted, she's not going into saving that other guy on the ship knowing she is laying her life on the line to do it. Like, she's at no point does she go, I am actively sacrificing myself. Like, I'm putting myself in danger to help this guy, but it's the right thing to do. And I do find that wildly fascinating, because when you juxtapose it with Kamir and May, the fact that even though they are in cahoots and, again, seemingly serving Lord Teeth, whoever he may be, I know the captions call him the Stranger. Ever since Joseph Scrimshaw said Darth Teeth, I have not been able to stop calling him that. And whenever we do get a name for him, it is a habit I'm going to have to break. But
I mean, Baby Yoda and Grogu.
yeah, I mean, I got really good at saying the child, and then transitioned over to Grogu. Like I limited, like Baby Yoda was I'm talking to a normal person,
Yeah.
and I'm proud of the fact that I have trained a lot of normal people to call him Grogu. Like I take pride in that. But I still hear the Baby Yoda show all the time, which I'm like, you can't win them all. But seeing that juxtaposition where OSHA is like, oh, I gotta save this guy. It is non-negotiable. I save this guy to the point where he screws her over. Meanwhile, May and Kamir, she's like ready to kill him because he accidentally or not sold her out. And the fact that it's up for debate whether or not he did it on purpose, whether Kamir's just an idiot or, intentionally threw her under the bus in some way. Obviously before he started squealing, and he's very clearly playing. It seems like he's playing along with OSHA with her wire. But it's, again, I love that difference between them of I'm going to save a stranger versus I'm going to kill my teammate because they confessed at lightsaber point. There is how little mercy and understanding there is on May's end versus what's happening with the lost and the found. I'm so excited for more episode titles. Like, I think that's one of the things, like unironically, a little bit more than learning more about the mystery. I think I'm just excited to see each episode title because they didn't show them in the advanced screenings. Because there's not like a title card like there was with Mando or Book of Boba Fett or Ahsoka. Like it was just, the flashing lightsaber character face montage and then show. So in my mind, I thought it was going to be like Obi-Wan, where it was like just episode whatever. We're jumping right in. There's no what. I was in love with seeing the titles. I love how much weight they carry.
I completely forgot that the two characters are played by the same actress. And I just straight up did not know until I was on Twitter. I'm scrolling through Twitter and I see all these tweets like, Amandla does a fantastic job balancing these two characters. And I'm like, okay, whatever. That's cool. And it just didn't occur to me. And then first 10 minutes of the, first 5 minutes or so, after the fight happens, I'm like, oh yeah, it's May. That's Amandla Sternberg's character. And then show the other person, and I'm like, wait, that's her too. What the fuck? And then it was real. Oh yeah, they're twins. And I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense now.
For a second, I want you to know I was getting ready to make fun of you that it took you through the runtime of both episodes to figure out it was the same actor.
Oh,
you were about to get made fun of there for a second.
No, it didn't. So again, I was paying attention, but I just holistically wasn't in on it.
No. I mean, you shouldn't have known it was the same actor before you watched it. You shouldn't have known it was two different characters before you watched it.
Yeah, I can't remember when I sort of figured out oh, they're twins. I think it was probably when Yord and Jackie came on and they were accusing her of killing Indara, and I'm like, oh, so they're I can't. Maybe I think they spell it out at one point, and I'm like, oh, that makes sense. That makes sense. Why played by the same actress? That makes a lot of sense.
She did I think it was the LA premiere, but didn't she show up in two different dresses? She took pictures in one outfit and then she changed clothes and came back in a different outfit. And that's when I was like, oh, I think I see something. Yeah.
I didn't know she did that. Oh,
I think I saw that.
Damn cool.
I'll have to double check, but I swear I saw her in two different outfits at one. And that was my first hint. Is she?
Yeah, no, that's really cool.
It is really cool. And again, like piggybacking off of that, just again back to like the twin theory of it all. The framing on the poster. I love how the amount of like, because we were all saying some wild stuff about The Force Awakens based off of the poster back in 2015. The amount of Kylo Ren is Luke Skywalker because Kylo Ren is huge on the poster and Luke Skywalker isn't on it. Therefore, Kylo Ren is Luke Skywalker. But I was like that was the only thing that made me stick up my nose at Twin Theory. Is that I was like, we can't keep using the poster as evidence, guys.
Isn't the O in the logo 2 O's?
It is.
The Acolyte? Yeah. I feel like they were, like you said, they were being clever about it, but they were also being
it was like a really good warm up for the audience.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, guys, like get your juices flowing. Okay, the twin was the tutorial. Now we're going. But
it might be. I mean, I have an identical twin, so maybe it seemed really obvious to me.
Oh, I did not know that. I did not know there was a. I did not know there was a May to your OSHA. That's cool.
That's exactly right. Yep.
I'm assuming you're the light side one. I'm assuming you're the light side one.
That's what we used to say. So
she wrote a book called "Be More Darth Maul."
Yeah, exactly.
And it was. And it was actually a copy paste of your book, but with a big friggin' X through every page.
Angry faces on it.
Yeah. instead of like actual insight into being a better person. But no, I again like there is something that I find so charming and like endearing about the show in the ways that it's like, yes, is to steal the phrase that Alex Damon used in his review that I thought was very clever, where he was like, it's not a who done it, it's a why done it.
Mm-hmm.
And you alluded to that earlier, Kelly, but like the show does not waste more time than is like narratively justifiable in everybody thinking it's OSHA. All rational evidence points to OSHA. Soul immediately goes, hey, there was a twin y'all didn't know about. Everybody goes, oh, okay, cool. Gets on board with that.
Yep.
And we can't talk about it in this episode, but I have some thoughts on what the fuck Soul knows and isn't telling people.
Okay. Talk, I'll listen.
Well, I didn't know if there was like a no speculation because I have thoughts.
No, I mean, I can't speculate.
You can't?
You guys can. Yeah, you guys
can. Kelly. Kelly.
Kelly, you just unleashed the monster.
I'll just sit here and listen.
I gotta go get my tinfoil out of the kitchen and make myself a little hat real quick. No, but I do love just the immediacy with which like OSHA is welcomed kind of back into the fold as like someone who's part of the equation. And if I may, I do think I cracked the case. I do think I did it. And I hope I'm wrong. I want there to be smoking gun evidence that makes me rework my whole theory every week. I never want to press play thinking I know what's happening and then exit out once the credits roll feeling confident. Like, I want to be proven wrong every step of the way. I want to be able to make a compilation of me theorizing about this show and for me to be able to put like the Curb Your Enthusiasm music under it. Like, I want me to be so off, not because I think it's bad, but because I just want this show to keep throwing me for loops. But my working theory is Soul, Kelnaka, Torben. My girlfriend keeps calling him Turbo. And I almost called him Turbo. Like every time they say his name, she does like the DuckTales. Like, I could have been Turbo every time his name comes up. But Torben, Kelnaka, Soul, and Dara all go to Brandok. They have a conversation with Mother Anastasia and the Coven. That conversation goes to shit. Everything pops off. And May gets freaked out, taps into the dark side, and does whatever that causes this fire. Now, I haven't made up my mind as to whether or not the twins got separated in the melee, or they just kind of, or OSHA saw everything and May didn't know that OSHA saw it, whatever. But I think, and this is the big reason why Indara and Soul both are so weird about drawing their lightsaber, I think Soul used what he thought was lethal force to stop May.
That's right, because he does say, like, I saw her die.
I saw her die.
Yep.
And the other Jedi watched while Soul was forced into a situation where he thought he had to do the unthinkable. And Indara gets all weird and cagey about drawing her lightsaber. Torben, I was calling him Turbo again. Torben takes the bearish vow. Kalnaka's like, peace, I don't want nothing to do with any of y'all ever again. And Soul imposes it upon himself to make up for this transgression by training the sister, and after she leaves, taking up training of all the children in the order to make sure that he never that's to make sure a situation is ever created where somebody has to do the same horrible thing he did.
Where do you think Turbo got his scar from?
Something to do with the witches. Like I said, I think shit goes south pretty quickly with Mother Anastasia and her crew, and I think at some point along the way,
it's like a whole big scrap. I got it.
I think it's a whole big scrap, and May gets freaked out and fire. I think something like that happens there, and the May is discovered in the aftermath, presumed dead. And again, I think Osha has an idea as to what happened because she is so quick to tell Soul, this is not your fault. You did what you had to do. Those are the words of somebody who was clearly made peace with. My sibling got out of control, and somebody again, like the unthinkable had to be done. Like it's all of these lives against this one, and I have to do something. And that's where Soul's head was at. And I think that when Osha is taken into the order, May is left behind, presumed dead, and is then taken under the wing by Darth Teeth, who is doing his damnedest to make sure that she is filled with all of the negative emotions and is not given the coping mechanisms necessary to get through what happened, and has this deep-seated hatred of the Jedi. And does her whole attack me with all your strength. A Jedi does not attack an unarmed enemy. Yes, you do. Because she saw it happen to herself. That is my working. Here's why we got here. Not even the how, but the why done it. You know, that's my working theory right now. I don't think Khmer is Darth Teeth. I do not think they're one and the same. I think Darth Teeth is a Darth. I think that is a card-carrying Sith Lord. I think he's the apprentice trying to draft an apprentice to help him kill the master.
Yeah, as soon as he like ignited his lightsaber for no reason, I was like, drama queen, definitely a Sith.
Yeah. He does graduate from the unnecessary cool factors rule of two Sith school.
Yeah.
You know, there is Vader using the Force in Rogue One to flutter his cape after the Tantive 4 leaves. There is Darth Maul turning on his lightsaber for no discernible reason on a holo call with Kira and Solo.
Drama queens.
Drama queens.
Yeah.
They're like, this will look cool as hell.
Yeah.
2 people will see it. I look cool as hell.
Yeah, that just completely non-Star Wars related. Just your whole thing, Jared, about like, I don't know if this is going to be right, but I'm going to say it anyway. Reminded me of one random freaking time where my family and I were playing Clue, and my dad got the whole thing right in like 4 turns or whatever. Like he predicted the, killer location weapon. And I'm still just impressed to this day. So that's just kind of what that reminded me of.
Certified Benoit Blanc moment. Okay, complete non sequitur. I don't like Clue because you could be the killer and not know it. I fundamentally dislike that about Clue. If you find out you're the killer, you should have to lie about that. I don't care. I don't care if it breaks the game. You should have to cover it up. Anyway.
Yeah.
But that is my working theory. And I think that it adds this level of tragedy to Soul, and it puts him in a position that, like, you don't get to see the Jedi in often, where there is that hubris, there is that sure of themselves nature. but that Soul, if I'm right, contributes to the institutional decay of the Jedi by not coming clean. He's chosen to burden himself silently with like different acts of atonement. But at no point did he own up to, hey, the Jedi came around swinging their lightsabers, telling another Force religion how to use the Force, and they didn't like that, and they popped off because we trespassed upon them. And now we think a kid's dead because of it, and that's on me. I'm just going to bottle that up and handle it my own way. He's incredibly tender. He's incredibly caring. He's incredibly empathetic. But it's almost like he recognizes the greater good to a fault.
He seems sad.
There's
seems something very sad about it.
Really hurt.
Yeah.
He seems fundamentally broken inside.
Something happened, man.
Yeah. And I think that's why, I think that's part of why he's so like on the defensive fighting May. He doesn't even let her hit the ground.
That's true.
Like that was something that stuck out to me so hard. And like, yeah, you can hand wave that away as like, she was in a compromising position. So like now she's easy pickings to try to like read her mind or whatever. Sure. But like he could have just like held her there on the ground, And there's also a really beautiful parallel to, he saves May, or he saves Ocean from falling, he saves May from falling. That like he refuses to let either of them go. And that he's trying to make up for what must have happened in the past. Then again, even if everything I'm saying is wrong, like the text as presented in the show is they went to that village, shit went left, she died, in air quotes, she died, and 4 Jedi had their relationship with the Force fundamentally changed because of it. So there has to be something there that he is so attached to protecting her, despite her trying to put 2 shurikens right through his eyes. Like, God, I love it. Speaking of Torben.
Yeah. Took this little thing called the Bearish Vow.
That was another moment where I went, ooh, watching it, that Kason and Taylor were like, what's that? I was like, not incredibly important, but really fucking cool.
I said, oh, and my husband said, why? And it was like, comic thing, keep watching.
Just, oh, what's that? And just silently watching the show, eating popcorn, just slaps the trade paperback of The Blade into his chest. And just
yeah, I was like, hell yeah.
Yeah.
No, that was again, it was one of those cool things where it's like, like again, did you need to read like all 11,000 of the books and comics to understand this show? No. The little moments like that just love it.
Those are my favorite kinds of Easter eggs, the ones that aren't like super, it's not 3PO and R2, it's just one little phrase.
One little phrase, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that gives additional context to the people who know. Like it lets the diehard understand like this is how seriously this shit hit Torben. But like for the layman, well, he's in deep meditation and he hasn't spoken in 10 years. Homie's just levitating.
What I just find really interesting about that too,
Homie disassociated at the party and just.
Yeah, he's just, he's in another plane of existence. What I just find really interesting about that is like the first person we see like in release order take the Bearish Vow, Kira Kafala in the Vader comic. He's on this like backwater planet that's far away from civilization. And then here's Master Torben in a local Jedi temple that's still populated. Just kind of secluded himself in solitude in here. So it's just, there's still people around him, but like, I like how pretty much all of them know, like, yeah, Master Torben's doing his thing. We just leave him alone. But it's funny because when he said his last words were, "We thought we were doing the right thing," I just completely forgot that like he was directly involved in the whole Brendock incident. So I was thinking like big picture, like, okay, what the hell is he referring to? Like, what did the Jedi do this time? But in that case, honestly, it still kind of that still kind of holds point, because it's like they did think they were doing the right thing, and in essence they didn't, and it kind of reflected bad on the Jedi as an institution and themselves. So
Well, I still, before we talk more about the Torben thing, my like this is where I think this is going before the show even came out. From the trailer where we see, what are you, Darth Teeth moment, where throws a lightsaber, force repulse. I am of the opinion that this show ends one of two ways: a massive and depressing body count, or Darth Teeth is vanquished. Darth Teeth is killed in the line of battle against the Jedi Order. And they don't say shit.
yeah, I mean,
They
that's
cover
like
it up. They
I
cover
mean,
it up. They're like, okay, that was a Sith.
Haven't
That's
seen a
crazy.
Sith in a millennium.
Yeah, like
and
they're
Keanu
like,
Reeves says it himself. The
yeah,
Sith have been extinct for over millennia.
exactly.
Gee,
They
how do you
have
know that?
they have, but I'm saying they have that exact reaction. Okay, we killed him. We killed him. He's dead.
Like, what Sith? What happened?
If we go back to Coruscant and tell them we just fought and killed a Sith Lord, people are going to lose their goddamn minds.
Or it's going to be used against our.
Out.
It's going to be used against our enemy, against us by our
exactly.
enemy.
And that is, dude, bro. Whenever Vernestra said that, there was a part of me that I was like, that felt again, like in the same moment, I'm like, oh, Vern, you're better than this. I'm also like, oh my god, I was onto something. Because again, like if that is one of the first scenes in the show, like the fear of their political enemies, and they're like, we have to go home and tell them we just fought and killed a Sith. Hell no. The galaxy will lose their minds. They will think we are incompetent because we let this threat come back. Just like we shit the bed with the Nameless. Not again. Like, the Sith is dead. There's no reason to worry about this. And they will make the same mistake they made with May.
It is interesting how Sol reacts to her saying that too. He's just kind of like, oh, yeah. Like, he doesn't argue it. Like, if it was Qui-Gon, I think, because we all like to compare him to Qui-Gon, Qui-Gon would have argued or pointed out that was wrong. But not Sol. He was just like, oh, yeah. He's so tired.
Yeah, he truly, like, there is a tiredness to him. It's why I don't like his odds. Is that okay to say? Like, the first week of the Acolyte is I think Sol's gonna eat it. Like,
I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of in that.
I know
thought process too.
it kind of blows my mind that I have not seen like Star Wars Twitter doing a Deadpool for this movie yet. Because I don't want to be the guy to tell you that Yord and Sol are probably dead men walking. I don't want to be the one to break that news. I do not think these men are surviving past the season of television. I like Yord's odds a lot better. I don't think Sol's going to make it, y'all. I don't. I'm afraid for Sol. And I do this to myself because I graft onto the one that's going to hurt the most every time.
He's the best.
Yeah, with Sol, it's funny that, like, I think just the tenderness he shows some of the characters. I just had the dark thought in my mind where I'm just like, he's probably going to bite it and I'm going to hate it. And then isn't there, so I can't remember, in the marketing or in one of the trailers or whatever, does Yord fight some red saber guy, like an acolyte or something?
I think Yord is everybody, like pretty much everybody we've met, plus a couple more I don't think we have yet, are present for, or at least the trailer frames it as such, that they are present for the, like, big dramatic lightsaber throw, what are you, force repulse moment.
Okay.
I truly think, and that's going to be part of why they've shown how powerful a lot of these Jedi are so far. Like, unarmed between Sol and Indara, how potent a telekinetic Yord is, that it's like nothing for him to keep catching everything. I think they're trying to show us like this is how good the Jedi of this time are. To like, this is going to be such a stupid example. They're basically going to do a reverse Ninja Turtles fight. Where like if you go back and watch the 90s Ninja Turtle movies, like the turtles would be outnumbered like 4-20, and each foot ninja would fight them individually and take turns. I think it's going to be like that, but Darth Teeth is going to like kind of stage manage it like Darth Maul did, where he's like, I'm going to get everybody out of the way and then focus on you, and then I'm going to focus on you, and they're going to focus on you, and they're going to focus on you. Like, he's going to be a lot more systematic, but I think Darth Teeth is going to get jumped and still win somehow, which makes him terrifying. Him and all his chompers. But with Torb ADHD on parade in this fucking episode. With Torben, I do love, like, it is related with, like, kind of showcasing the power of the Jedi in this era. I do love us seeing like such a wild force feat that he has created like an impenetrable telekinetic barrier. And it goes to a point that I have been making for almost my entire life as a Star Wars fan, that when we talk about combative application of the Force, and like, I am one of the few Star Wars. I am convinced I'm one of the few people on the internet who love new Star Wars and also loves the Force Unleashed. And it's because I have never thought Starkiller was that powerful. I have always interpreted him as being somebody who was incredibly crafty, and that anybody, any Force sensitive, from Yoda to Dooku to Liam the Padawan to Gungi, whoever, could pull a Star Destroyer out of the sky. They could all do it. It's just a matter of focus, concentration, and like openness to the Force. Anybody could do that. It's the same debate that was had about Sabine and Ahsoka, where it's like, oh, I guess midichlorians don't mean anything now. And it's like, no, midichlorians are the difference between like a Jedi and Chirrut Imwe. Chirrut is probably as much as you can use the Force under a certain midichlorian count. The reason Sabine is so on the razor's edge is because she's really low for a quote unquote Force sensitive. Or at least that's how I always interpreted it. Anybody can use the Force. It's just a matter of degrees. It's a difference between like super serene monk and kind of a superhero. Like, it's, like everybody can do it. There's just a spectrum of using the Force. That like you see this guy in Torben who is just so centered in the Force and has been for a decade, that like he's untouchable. Like that's so cool. I just love that. It's just, I love stuff like that. Like, yeah, you can't touch Torben. You have to. And it also lends itself to, again, that puzzle element of the show, where even the characters are trying to solve a puzzle. Even May, even our culprit, has to put puzzle pieces together to figure out how to defeat her enemy. And oh my god, I just lost his name. Apothecary guy. Shit.
Oh,
Khmer.
Yeah.
Whenever like I love, like, with Khmer, like that is just such a great, like, it was almost like El Rata Alada in the Batman, with how much of like an aha moment that was, of like you have to give him absolution, which was just such a gut punch, which is just it's such a bitter, just sorrowful place to end for a character. And again, I love that the Acolyte has, in my opinion, it's perfectly fused the, more adult themes and a more mature Star Wars story with the whimsy that should accompany Star Wars, no matter how heavy it gets. I'm doing everything in my power not use the words dark and gritty, because I do think I shave a couple years off of my life every time I say it. But it can go to this really, really sorrowful, heavy place, but there's still like the fairy tale whimsy of like, yeah, you can't beat him up. You have to offer him death. Like
He didn't
shit.
hesitate. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's immediately like,
Yeah,
sorry.
okay.
Yeah, he's like, knock him, smoke him if you got him. But yeah, this show so far has just been so exciting, and I'm so blown away by like the force foo choreography up to this point that I'm like, I am, God, y'all are gonna have to mute me on Twitter once the lightsabers come out. I'm gonna need I'm sorry, everybody. It's all I'm gonna talk about. It's all I'm gonna talk about. Y'all thought I was bad for Shadow Warrior back when that episode came out, where I got to watch Hayden Christensen all over the screen, because there are a few actors who know how to use a lightsaber like him, and it's kind of terrifying. Sorry, I'm going to be so annoying. I'm going to be so annoying once the actual lightsabers come out. I am already trying to figure out okay, which of the 7 forms does everybody use? Because I love that shit so much. I am already trying to do that. God help you all. Once the lightsabers come out, I'm not going to shut up.
Yeah, Daphne Keene teased that, didn't she? That we weren't ready to see what they were going to do.
Oh, and I'm so ready. I'm so ready for her to cash that check. I am so ready for her to cash that check, because I believe it. I absolutely believe it. I will never, ever, ever understand the people who don't like the newer lightsaber duels. I'm just convinced they're watching something else. And I let me tell you, Ahsoka v. Balin 1 remain and then I was like, okay, this is fresh. So maybe I'm tweaking because of recency. It's still in my top 10, top 5, depending on the day, for lightsaber duels. And if we're leaning even further into that martial arts movie pizzazz, once the blades come out and Daphne Keene's comparing it to the Duel of the Fates, this is going to be some high flying fucking anime bullshit. And I cannot wait. I cannot wait for it. High flying anime bullshit got a bigger laugh than I was expecting, and I'm happy about that. But
that was the perfect description. I knew what you meant.
That's a real, yeah.
But yeah, does anybody have any closing thoughts on these first 2 episodes of The Acolyte?
Just that, going back to the whole Master Torben thing, I almost got secondhand embarrassment. Not secondhand embarrassment. That's not the right way to phrase it, but when May Osha, Christ, whatever. Osha goes into the room and leans over Master Torben to see what happened. I was like, shit. This is where she's gonna get framed, and they're gonna take her to jail. And Master Soul's probably gonna be like, it wasn't her, but they're gonna be like, we saw her with the body, and then Jord saves the day. And I'm like, thank Christ.
I know, but seriously, that does harken back to what I was saying earlier. I'm so glad that they just went, okay, Osha's innocent. No one's under the impression that she's not. Moving forward.
Yep.
In the first episode or second episode, when he's on the holo with Vernestra, and she's like, okay, she's cleared for it because somebody else got killed while she was, you have Osha. So there's no way we can pin it on her.
Yeah.
So I just love how they just took that for granted, and they were like, boom, we're off to the races.
And also, I love that Kelnaka's on just a distant planet.
I am really curious if it's 2 out of 4 Jedi involved with this took the Barish vow.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of thinking. I'm like, did he take it?
Kelnaka left. That is fully on the table that Kelnaka left the order.
Yeah.
We're gonna find out there's a jet or there's a Wookiee in the Lost 20. Like that would
Or we
be
get to
great.
hear the words Wayseeker for the first time in live action.
Don't, Kelly, don't talk like that to me. I will start throwing shit out of excitement.
Can you imagine?
I named my
No.
whole faction in Epic Confrontations after the Wayseekers. I will make it everybody's problem if we get Wayseekers in live action. But no, I absolutely love these first 2 episodes. I'm so excited to see where it goes. One other thought I did have that I'm curious about. Did anybody else hear, maybe I'm crazy, the melody to a Return to Tatooine from the Attack of the Clones soundtrack in the 2nd episode, or is it just me?
I could have sworn I saw someone tweet about it. So you're not alone.
Do you know which
'Cause
song I'm
I-
talking about? Like, do you remember how that? So it's the one. It's the let me pull it up real quick.
think
'cause
I-
It's
yeah, I think I know
also in
which
the
one.
main menu music. It's the main menu music for the Revenge of the Sith game, and that's how it stuck out to me. But I couldn't remember the title of it. I just went, oh, that's the Revenge of the Sith main menu music. But turn to Tatooine theme, because I heard this several times in the 2nd episode, and I was like, that's an interesting musical choice that I am intrigued by. Actually, I'll go with the Revenge of the Sith main menu music because it'll go right to the part I'm talking about. Pull it up. It's the main string section here. Let me take it back. I'm telling you, this plays in the 2nd episode like twice.
I think, I don't know, but I think.
But the thing I think is so fascinating, if that's the case, it's the music that leads directly into Anakin's rampage with the Tuskens, setting the table for his act of violent revenge, to kind of like tie those musical moments together in what's happening in the story. I don't know. I might be crazy. I might be hearing things that aren't there, but I am like, there were a couple moments in the 2nd episode where I heard that that I was like, what's that all about? But if that's all we have for you guys this week, Kelly, where can the lovely people find you and all that you do?
You can find me on Twitter at Kelly_Knox. You can find my writing at StarWars.com, DC Comics, or Crunchyroll if you're into those things. I'm pretty easy to find, and yep.
Hell yeah. Listen, fandom on the internet is such an awful place sometimes. A lot of the times, if I'm being honest. And Kelly is one of the few havens on the internet that is just unabashedly pleasant and fun. And that's just her work. That's to say nothing of like the incredibly fun and funny person you yourself are in concert with that. So thank you so much for coming on the show. We got to have you on again very soon.
Yes, thank you. There's a lot to think about tonight.
A lot to think about. And thank you for putting up with me bursting at the seams to share my theories, because
I know, I'm glad you did.
I know. I didn't want to get you in trouble. I didn't want to get you in trouble by me saying something and you getting caught in the crossfire for it. So
no, I just don't want anybody to think I know something and I really know nothing.
I was
So
like,
that's
I'm
all.
just as in the dark as you guys.
Yeah, I'm just along for the ride here too. So
We're all gonna figure it out together.
yes.
Connor, where can the lovely people find you, bud?
Twitter, Step a Banana, Instagram, ConmanJFO, here, obviously. Over at For the Republic Podcast, our Twitter is For the Repub Pod. You can find us on Instagram, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, pretty much wherever you listen to podcasts. We talk Star Wars. Shocker. You can find me also over at the Star Wars in a Galaxy Epic Confrontations.
Whoop whoop.
I co-host and co-write trivia questions, which is really fun. You can find all of our past and future matches over at the Star Wars in a Galaxy YouTube channel. You can follow us on Twitter at In a Galaxy Trivia. Yeah, that's about it. There's one other thing, but like the website's down, so yeah.
Worry about that when it comes back up.
Yeah.
Yeah, real quick, other thing. So Ionized Bastards, the Star Wars RPG show I am a part of. We are recording our penultimate episode of season 2 next week. I'm very excited. Season 2 is coming to a close, and I have never been filled with more paranoia and dread in my life. I will say that so for those of you who have not seen Ionized Bastards, the main villain of the show, Salvage, is this droid consciousness that has been around for thousands of years and has had all the time to become just angry with organic life, very much like Am from like I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, but in Star Wars and terrifying, and lives in the body of a Magna Guard. It's awful. Because we found out in season 2 that Salvage can, if somebody has a Lobot style, head implant thingy, occupy a human body using that. I am convinced that the weird robot guy on the prison ship is Salvage, and no one can change my mind. That was Salvage, and I hate him even more now because he fucked with OSHA. You metal bastard. But obviously, Ionized Bastards, Epic Confrontations, had their first championship match, as he talked about. Congratulations to, damn it, I'm about to say his name a third time. He's going to show up like Beetlejuice. Congratulations to the Iconoclast on becoming the first Epic Confrontations singles champion. And I look forward to more matches this year. I have another one coming up later this year. Actually, Eli might yell at me. So, assuming things go according to plan, I believe he's in the early stages of planning a match with you, Kelly. Or if he has not reached out, he has ideas if I'm not mistaken, because these plans change all the goddamn time. If things go a certain way, Kelly, you and I might end up playing against each other soon.
Ooh, okay.
I remember what Eli told me the other night correctly. It might end up coming down to us, and I don't want that for either of our sakes. But you guys also I keep forgetting. There's a third show that isn't my own show that I'm a part of. The Pro and Noob podcast, a anime show hosted by Mitch692 over at the Mitch692 YouTube channel, where he shows me anime one episode at a time. Our first season is on Neon Genesis Evangelion. We're 3 episodes in. I'm having the time of my life trying to figure out what in the actual fuck is going on.
That'll never stop, just so you know.
You're like the 13th. I have the most recent episode that should come out tomorrow while we're recording this, but today when this episode is out, most of that episode is me getting really in the weeds with all the Christian iconography and trying really hard to figure that out. Because episode 0 is him showing me like the Netflix announcement trailer. Like the trailer came out when Netflix was like the streaming debut of the greatest anime of all time. And it was him showing me that trailer, basically going, "What do you think is happening?" before we get into the show, because he knows I love to do shit like that, as we've discussed today. And I got really hung up on the creepy crawly white creature nailed to a cross. And I got really hung up on that image in the trailer. And I think it poisoned my mind for the rest of the show. And I almost wish I didn't see that. Because I can't stop obsessing over what, because I am at the point where I'm like, there has to be some type of like Abrahamic parallel here that I can't figure out. The goddamn monsters are called angels, man. There has to be something. Like I am just going fully off the rails every time we go to record an episode of this. So over at the Mitch692 YouTube channel, you can go check out the Pro and Noob podcast, where I descend into madness trying to understand Neon Genesis Evangelion. So go check that out. Even though, as I've been told by many people, including the lovely Kelly Knox, I won't understand Neon Genesis Evangelion as hard as I try it to. Alas, I will not. But yeah, so check all that out. Be sure to find Nerd Academy Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, wherever you get podcasts, and on our website, nerdacademypodcast.com. Special thank you to our patrons who are running late today, so I'm not playing all the clips. Sorry about that. But to Keandre Lloyd, Paco, and Ray Clausen, who asks that you donate to Equality Texas to help keep queer kids safe in the Lone Star State, especially during this year, Pride Month. Next week, we're going to be jumping back into the Patreon Versus series. We were very far behind, and we have a lot of ground to catch up on. We were teasing some of the matchups we have planned, like Ezra Bridger versus Padawan Obi-Wan Kenobi. I'm very excited to do that one. And Kelleran Beck versus the Grand Inquisitor, just to name a few matches we have coming your way. That one will feature Eli from In a Galaxy as our special guest. So stay tuned for all of that at the $5 tier of our Patreon. So without any further ado, thank you very much for joining. We are honored that you have joined us. May the force be with you always, and for light and life.
Stop! Move away from the cookie jar!